The process of digestion begins in the mouth. In the mouth, you have important components that help you to begin the process of digestion. In the mouth, mechanical digestion begins using your teeth. You have specific teeth which break apart the food. Your incisors at the front of the mouth will tear and shred food apart. This is good for things like meat. Your molars in the back of the mouth are very good for chewing and grinding the food. Also in the mouth, the process of chemical digestion begins. Chemical digestion can break food apart into smaller molecules at the molecular level using enzymes. Saliva contains the important enzyme amylase. Amylase can break starch into its small components called monosaccharides. If you remember, monosaccharides are the building blocks of carbohydrates. So starch is a type of carbohydrate that gets broken down into monosaccharides in the mouth. Also in the mouth, you have your tonsils. Your tonsils are going to help prevent infection in the nose and mouth by eliminating foreign bacteria. The tongue at the back of your mouth is used to help to push the food into your esophagus. The food that gets chewed up is called a bolus. The tongue will push this bolus to the back of your mouth. At the back of your mouth, you have two tubes. If you remember, one tube goes down to the lungs. This is called your trachea. When you have food in your mouth, the epiglottis will shut, preventing food or the bolus from going down the trachea. Instead, the bolus will go down your esophagus. The way that the bolus goes down your esophagus is by a process called peristalsis. Peristalsis is an involuntary muscle contraction with wave-like contractions that pushes the bolus down into your stomach. The stomach is a muscular sac. Here, you have both mechanical and physical digestion taking place. The opening of the stomach has a very tight muscle called a sphincter. The closing of the stomach also has a sphincter. This sphincter is made up of a ring of muscles. This is to guard the opening and closing of the stomach. The environment of the stomach is very acidic. It has a pH of 2. This tight opening is going to prevent that acidic environment from entering the esophagus or from entering the small intestine. Mechanical digestion happens in the stomach because the stomach is made up of a muscle. The muscles will churn the food around the stomach. The bolus of food, once inside the stomach, will turn into a liquid. It turns to a liquid because of the chemical digestion that takes place. The lining of the stomach contains millions of glands. These glands secrete pepsin and hydrochloric acid. Pepsin is able to break down protein into its smaller components called amino acids. These are the building blocks of protein. So pepsin, the enzyme, breaks down protein into amino acids, but pepsin can only work in a pH of 2. So because the glands also secrete hydrochloric acid, that allows pepsin to do its job. In order to prevent the lining of the stomach from being burnt, the stomach has a layer of mucus. This layer of mucus prevents acid from burning the walls of the stomach food can stay in the stomach from 2 to 4 hours. From the stomach, the food will go through the pyloric sphincter and enter the small intestine. The small intestine is 6 meters long. It's small, not due to its diameter, not to its length. It's actually incredibly long. Muscle contractions here are able to mechanically break down the food. However, carbohydrates and proteins undergo chemical digestion with the help of enzymes that are released by the pancreas and the liver. We'll talk about that in the next slide. Liquid can stay in the small intestine anywhere from 3 to 5 hours. The liquid that enters the small intestine from the stomach is called chyme. The chyme travels through the small intestine and it may by the process of peristalsis, and it can take 3 to 5 hours to get through the small intestine. The pancreas, which is located next to the small intestine, releases important enzymes into the small intestine. The pancreas releases lipase, which breaks down fats into lipids. The pancreas also releases trypsin into the small intestine, which breaks down proteins into amino acids. And the pancreas releases amylase, which breaks down starch into monosaccharides. And the pancreas releases nuclease, which breaks down DNA and RNA into nucleotides. All of these enzymes enter the small intestine. The pancreas also releases bicarbonate. Bicarbonate enters the small intestine. Bicarbonate is really important because it's basic and it can help to neutralize the acidity of the chyme. Remember, the chyme came from the stomach and the chyme was acidic. So if you put something basic with something acidic, it will become neutralized. So the pancreas is going to release 4 important enzymes into the small intestine, and it also releases bicarbonate, which makes sure that the chyme is neutralized so that your small intestine doesn't get burnt. The liver also produces bile, which is required in the small intestine. Bile is able to break down fat. So bile breaks down fat into lipids. So bile is made in the liver and then it's stored in the gallbladder. The gallbladder then releases bile into the small intestine. So the gallbladder is going to release bile into the small intestine to break down fats. So the small intestine works with the help of enzymes secreted by the gallbladder and by the pancreas. The small intestine has a really unique design. It actually looks like this if we were to look very close with a microscope. This picture here shows you that. You can see all of these finger-like projections like that. Those are called the microvilli. This helps to increase the surface area of the small intestine. These microvilli are surrounded by capillaries. That's really important because the capillaries are going to pick up the nutrients that have been released by the enzyme. Some of the nutrients that are going to be picked up by the capillaries include amino acids, will go into the capillaries. Remember, the amino acids are going to be used to make proteins for yourself. The capillaries are also going to pick up monosaccharides. Monosaccharides are going to be used to make ATP. The capillaries are also going to pick up lipids. Lipids are going to be used to make new cell membranes in your body. And the capillaries can also pick up nucleic acids, which actually they're going to pick up nucleotides, which are the building blocks of nucleic acids. Nucleotides. So all of these basic building blocks are going to be picked up by the capillaries. We saw this very similar in the respiratory system, how the alveoli were right next to the capillaries. So your small intestine has these wonderful capillaries that are going to pick up all of the building blocks that will then be used in your body to build new cells. So the small intestine, a very important job of the small intestine is to absorb all of these important building blocks, which your body is going to use when it creates new cells, and which your body will use to give you energy. The final step of digestion takes place in the large intestine. Another word for the large intestine is called the colon. It's called large intestine because of its diameter. It's actually 1.5 meters long and 6.5 centimeters in diameter. The small intestine is responsible for absorbing water. Water and salts are absorbed by the intestinal wall. This is going to leave behind a solid material. The second function of the large intestine is to make vitamins. You do have bacteria that live in your large intestine. These bacteria are able to make vitamin B and vitamin K. These are important in your diet. After about 18 to 24 hours in the large intestine, any indigestible material that remains is now going to be called feces, and that will be stored in the rectum. The rectum will contain waste that will be eliminated by the excretory system. So, just to review, the process of digestion begins in your mouth, and it's going to use your teeth, it's going to use the saliva, it's going to use your tongue, and then from your tongue, it's going to be pushed, the bolus of food will be pushed into your esophagus. It will be prevented from going into your trachea because of the epiglottis shutting. And through peristalsis, the bolus will go down your epiglottis, will go down your esophagus, and it will enter the sphincter, and it will go into the stomach. In the stomach, pepsin is going to break down proteins into amino acids, and the hydrochloric acid is going to help the pepsin work and make the pH 2. From the stomach, it's going to go through another sphincter, and the food is going to enter the small intestine. In the small intestine, remember, it's going to have all these microvilli. You're going to get help from the pancreas. The pancreas is going to secrete 4 important enzymes: lipase, nuclease, amylase, and trypsin. Lipase is going to digest fats. Nuclease is going to digest DNA and RNA. Amylase is going to digest carbohydrates. Trypsin is going to digest proteins. You're also going to get help from the gallbladder, and the gallbladder is going to release bile into the small intestine. The bile is going to digest your fats. The pancreas is also going to release bicarbonate. Bicarbonate is going to neutralize the acid from the stomach. All of these enzymes are going to break the food molecules into small molecules. Those small building blocks are going to be absorbed by the capillaries that line the villi of the small intestine. Remember, the molecules that will be absorbed by the capillaries are going to be amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, monosaccharides, which are the building blocks of carbohydrates, nucleotides, which are the building blocks of DNA and RNA, and lipids. So those will all get absorbed into your bloodstream and used throughout your body. From the small intestine, the leftover material will go to the large intestine. In the large intestine, water and minerals are going to be reabsorbed into your body. You're going to have bacteria in the large intestine that are going to make vitamins for you. And anything that's left over is going to go to the rectum to be stored as feces, and the excretory system will get rid of that. I hope this was helpful. Good luck with your project. Knock it out of the park. Make a terrific model that you can be proud of.